Hey, Diana, did you know that being out of the office for a week can make you money?
Mark, that's the dumbest thing you've ever said.
Ladies and gentlemen, jurists and just curious, welcome to the Successful Barrister Podcast. Here you'll learn about marketing, management, and life skills for lawyers that probably won't get you disbarred. Hosted by Marc Whitehead, a seasoned lawyer who remembers when fax machines were cutting edge, and Diana Berry, attorney, COO, and the brains behind the scenes. Together, they are the legal world's most dynamic duo since statutes met regulations. So if you're looking to build a practice, not a prison, you're in the right place. Welcome to the Successful Barrister, where legal legends are made.
And welcome to the Successful Barrister Podcast, the podcast for lawyers and law firm leaders about marketing, management, and life skills that probably won't get you disbarred. I am your host, Marc Whitehead, alongside of my co-host, my COO, my right hand, Diana Berry. Hey, Diana, what's going on?
Hey, Mark, not much. How are you doing this Monday morning?
Well, I'm catching up.
I stay perpetually behind these days.
Staying perpetually behind, and just more and more stuff keeps piling on. But we're here today to talk about our trip.
I am behind because I was out of office for a week.
I know, and it killed you to be gone for that long. But all right, where did we go?
We went to Denver to the PILMMA Super Summit.
All right, and PILMMA stands for, this is a test.
Oh, I know.
Oh, no, I'm not going to tell you. You have to come up with this.
Personal Injury Lawyers Marketing and Management Association.
Yes.
Okay, something in there. There's still. I feel like I'm missing some.
Good job. Way to think on your
objects
feet.
there. But
yes. So this is Ken Hardison's group, the Personal Injury Marketing and Management Association. It is a mouthful. I think he actually tried to change it one time and it just didn't work out for him. But anyway, everybody knows this is PILMMA.
First time in Denver.
It's first time in Denver. It had been in New Orleans for, 4 or 5 years in a row prior to that. And I really love New Orleans. You know,
I really love the hotel. It was I'm a brat, but
yeah, we were at the Waldorf Astoria in New Orleans.
Or the Ritz is where I was.
Oh yeah, and they were at both for a while. And of course, you know me, and I love my char grilled oysters from New Orleans. So I was kind of missing that. I would say the cuisine. Actually, the cuisine was not bad in Denver. It's just, my wife's from New Orleans, so I'm down with some New Orleans style cooking. So I missed New Orleans, but Denver was great. Got to catch up with one of our former attorneys there. Had dinner with her
and her husband. It was great to see them.
Great to see them. So about PILMMA, so the Super Summit. This was a Super Summit, so this is available to the general public. It's not one of their masterminds, which is closed to mastermind members. This one is open to anybody can go to it. There's, I would say, roughly about 500 lawyers that attend this, along with probably, 50, 70 vendors, I'm guessing, somewhere in that neighborhood in a lovely hotel. And it's long.
It is a solid 3.5 days.
3.5 days of curriculum.
And you have to, well, I guess obviously implicit in that is that it starts at 8 o'clock on Tuesday morning, so you're there for 4 nights.
Yeah. So we came in. We had to come in Monday afternoon. So basically, the entire week we were in Denver. I managed to wrap it into a college trip for my graduating senior. So we went and visited the University of Denver while we were there. Very nice little campus, and we took a lot of people. So you went, I went. We took our marketing manager. We took our intake manager. I also took my wife and daughter. And
this is the second year that you've taken. I mean, I went 2 years ago. I missed last year, and in my stead, our intake and marketing manager went. So you have a history of taking a lot of people to this.
And I've preached about this on prior podcasts, but one of the problems when lawyers go to conferences, they come back with all of these great ideas, and then they don't know how to disseminate these ideas down to their people. Well, one way to solve that problem is just take your people with you. They don't get to go to as many things as you and I do.
That is correct.
So I think it is good to bring them, good to include them, and they get to see firsthand all of the vendors, all of the presentations. I make everybody take good notes, and then we all have to share notes at the end.
Yep. And so I think it's, to your point, when you invest in your people, one, they notice that. So you're investing in their education, their professional development, and they notice that. And secondly, implementation is a lot easier. So the way we're going to do it, I'm going to sit in on your intake and marketing level 10, not something I normally sit in on. And we're going to take essentially the top 10 ideas that we all had and take each of those top 10 ideas and either scrap them or put them into the plan, whether that's this quarter or,
or
next
schedule
year.
them out for Q2, 3, 4, 5,
and that's
Q7, Q8, whatever.
That's a very simple way to make sure that your ideas get implemented and not lost. So I think that anybody who wants to, just mimic that, I think it's a great idea to do that. Do a debrief. Make sure they show
absolutely.
you ROI.
There's no point in spending. I mean, I'm sure we spent over $10,000 by the time you add hotel, airfare, conference fees, food, the bar tab.
Your bar tab, not mine.
My bar tab.
That was a significant percentage of that.
Yes. So all of that, it adds up. It was a significant investment. So I want to make sure that we get to, let's call it $10,000. I want to get my $10,000 out of it.
Yeah, at least on that.
So yes, so we're definitely. I'm very happy. I got I got Mac's notes today, and quite frankly, her Mac's notes were probably way more complete than my notes were. So I may just, she's over there flipping her hair. I may just junk my notes. And I will tell one funny thing. So I took all the notes and I tried to feed them into ChatGTP and say, could you combine and synthesize these notes? And I gave it some descriptors and told them what the conference was about. And it totally melted ChatGTP.
You took my notes, I took our intake manager's notes, and your notes, and tried to get
tried to get it to meld the 4 sets of notes, because we're taking notes on the same thing. I tried to get it to do that, and it literally took 24 hours, and it came back with gibberish. And maybe there was some user error on that part. I don't know. But so I gave up, and I just thought, screw it. I almost dropped the F-bomb. Does that get us kicked off the air if I drop the F-bomb?
You might, but let's steer back into safe territory. What are we talking about today other than being out of office for a week?
So I think what we did is we agreed that each of us would pick out 2 or 3 of the best presenters, the speakers that we found interesting, and kind of go over what we found interesting and how we could apply it, how our listeners could apply those same principles in their practice. I would mention real quickly, the presentations, I know you can buy them.
The video presentations.
The video presentations, you can buy them if you go to PILMMA.org. So if you missed it, I do know that everything was recorded and everything is for sale. For us, it's cheaper. For non-members, I don't really know what it is, but it's still cheaper than actually attending and paying the hotel and all that fun stuff. So go to, it's PILMMA.org, is it not? It is .org, it's not .com. So PILMMA.org. Yes. Oh, this actually was a virtual summit. They could have attended virtually, which is why it's recorded. But so when we come back from break, you get to go first.
Oh.
Yes. Ladies first. And
so
you
ready
get
for
to
that.
talk about the presenter that you like the most. And since we were both there at the same time, I'm sure I'll have a few comments and vice versa. And then we'll take it from there. What were the best tips that we can come up with from the PILMMA Super Summit?
This podcast is sponsored by Marc Whitehead Associates, a national disability benefits law firm. Marc Whitehead runs a firm of over 60 dedicated people whose mission is to make a difference in the lives of our injured and disabled clients. Marc represents disabled claimants in Social Security disability, private disability insurance, and veterans disability claims in all 50 states. Marc Whitehead is double board certified in both Social Security disability law and personal injury trial law. Marc has litigated disability cases in over 40 states and counting, and can help your clients too. Stop throwing your phone calls away. Call Marc Whitehead at 701-VIP-LEAD. That's 701-VIP-LEAD. Or visit our website at disabilitydenials.com. Referral fees are paid in all jurisdictions where it is permitted. Refer us your disability cases today and know that your clients will be in good hands.
I was pitching to you to see if you wanted to do the and you're back, and
Well,
you didn't
threw
bite.
me. I thought you were going to go first.
No,
So
no,
now,
no.
okay. Well, okay. So I need to, very much in a Diana way, issue a disclaimer first. So I chose my two based on the ones that, they're not my favorite or my, the ones that I either liked the most, because I feel like Mickey Love and Cassie Lewis, I could listen to them all day. I mean, we went to Accelerator in Vegas, 2 years ago?
Mm-hmm.
And I did listen to Chad Dudley and Mickey Love like all day for 4 days.
They spoke spreadsheet to you for 3 days,
gosh.
and you were in love.
I still am. It's my love language. So it was great. So I did not pick either of those. I will my first one is From 2 to 200 Key Steps in Scaling Your Firm. Greg Ward and Yanni Martinez Wards presented that one. Do you remember that one, Mark?
I remember, yes. So Greg has the fun hair. He's like the blonde beach bum.
Okay. Oh, because they're Floridians.
They're Floridians, and
Okay.
he's got the long, flowing blonde hair. He kind of looks like a TV preacher, sort of, but, one of the good ones,
I didn't remember that about them. What I do remember was that he introduced this concept of the valleys of death to me from, is it Vern Harnish? Have you heard of this before?
Yes.
Okay. And so it's from a book from Harnish's book, and I seem to have lost it in my notes.
Scaling Up.
Okay. And I don't remember, I don't think it's that one. The
You don't think
Rockefeller one, I think, is what.
Oh,
the
Rockefeller
Google-
Habits.
It was the Google told me.
So Scaling Up is simply a updated version of Rockefeller Habits.
Okay, so then you're right, and Google was leading me.
It just went
astray.
to the first division.
So
First edition,
it was my first introduction to that concept, but it reiterates where we are now, which is why I think I liked it so much. Because for anyone who's not familiar with Harnish's Valleys of Death theory, it refers to the challenging periods or inflection periods, which I like, in a company's growth where significant changes are needed. It refers to the difficult and potentially dangerous periods that companies face when they need to evolve and scale. And this echoes a concept that we heard at Dudley's Accelerator conference maybe 3 years ago, where he said, you've almost got this blue ocean where we are now. Like everyone, the PI firms, and I understand we're not a PI firm, they get to that, 1 to 10, 10 to 25, 25 to 50, and then there's almost this blue
50
ocean.
what?
Employees, sorry, head count.
I thought you were talking millions of
Head count.
dollars.
No, sorry, head count.
Okay.
And then you almost have this blue ocean of people who really can't get to that 50 to maybe call it 100 head count. And then after that, you've got a few more very big names above that 100 head count. And so in his presentation, in the Ward's presentation, they took you through different head count for each slide. So for example, from 2 to 10, what were your key hires going to be? What did your marketing spend need to look like? Where did you need to spend your marketing spend? And I just thought it was very helpful because they took you from maybe 2 to 10, 10 to 25, 25 to 50, and then right now where we are, the 41 to 80 employees.
So, and I think at each inflection point is it's sort of like, you're climbing up to this platform and you make it there. But then to make it to the next inflection point, you kind of have to jump off that platform and you're going to take a dip. So it's like a J curve. You're going to drop before you go back up, is the way I interpreted that.
Well, and so the way that I interpreted it, it's interesting that you and I walked away with two different interpretations. There were two key inflection points or two key valleys of death in a growth, in a business's growth. And the second valley of death, according to the Wards, is around this 50 to 75 employees. You have different types of communication. And then what I kind of really liked about it was a reminder of the law of the lid. Do you remember the law of the lid?
I do not.
I forget which book it is, but Law of the Lid, where it's limited by the founder's own leadership ability. And this is a conversation that you and I have a lot about how, especially after our 2-day annual, where you and I are going to have to find perhaps a different leadership or growth in our leadership abilities to take our team to the next level. It echoes that book that we read years ago with our leadership team, What Got You Here Won't Get You There. You almost have to, at this particular inflection point, find a new way to do your 3Ms, for example. Your marketing, managing, and mentoring. It requires a whole nother level of another skill up set to do that.
So you kind of have to jump off at certain points. So you get, so in let's say in my case, you know, when I was 10 to 12 employees, I was managing everything, you know, and then to get from 10 to 12 employees up to about 25 or 30 employees, you know, I had to hire lawyers to manage different departments for me, because I could not manage everything. And then when I got up to about 30 to 35 employees, then I needed to hire you. I needed to hire a chief operating officer to come in and add another layer of management and leadership on top of us to get us from where we're 35 employees now to we're about 75 employees. You know, and we're talking in terms of employees. Of course, obviously, you have to scale the revenue to match that number as well. But that was the next layer of leadership that I wasn't capable of. I could have stayed at 30 to 35 employees, just left the attorneys to run each department, and we could have stayed there. But I could have never grown past that point have I not added you in your position to help grow us to where we are now, which is like about 75. We've just added another layer of leadership. We've just now added an HR person. I don't know exactly how we even title Conrad, but basically he's in charge of HR compliance and so forth, which is that next layer, because at some point we top out, even with you and me and the attorneys leading the firm. We need more functional help. So the reason I put the J curve in there is because every time you jump off to that next level, you do take a dip before you start going up.
Before you start finding efficiencies within that new level.
Right.
That new tranche.
And what the dip basically is dip in profit, because you're spending money on the hopes that the money you spend that take away from profits will actually lead to larger profits further on down the line. So you're having to make that initial dip in profit, that initial investment, with the idea that in the long run, you're going to be better off for it. So that's kind of how I interpreted his different levels.
I appreciated the different, like tranches, but again, the way you break it down. Like, so for example, at some point it helped me realize, yep, we're gonna have to bring IT in-house, or at least have someone in-house for IT. Right now we have an MSP that's just completely outside, and it helped me realize, you know, our next key hires and who they should be. So highly recommend that presentation. Which one do you want to talk about, Marc?
So I'm going to combine, again, breaking the rules. I'm going to combine probably about 4 or 5 presenters because it came up on a central theme. Dealing with marketing, specifically with digital marketing, which is the biggest thing that we do. Digital marketing, my definition, is going to be your SEO work, your paid ad, your PPC, your LSAs, and so forth. And it's the biggest part of our marketing budget. Again, this is a marketing podcast. Make sure you put that in the title so we can boost our ratings. So the first speaker that actually spoke was Tanner Jones with Consult Webs. And he spoke on building accountability with your marketing partners. And I think specifically what he was is how to hold your SEO vendor, your PPC vendor's feet to the fire. Like, how do you know you're getting what you're paying for? So, you know, in our case, I don't know what we pay, $25,000 a month just in vendor fees between PPC and SEO and so forth. I see Max doing the math in her head and sort of nodding. That 25 is the number. How do I know I'm getting what I'm paying for? Funny thing is we actually vetted Tanner's company and chose not to go with him. We ended up going with Hennessey, and Jason Hennessey was another one of the speakers I'm referencing. My own vendor from Hennessey Digital was there speaking. Conrad Sam from Mockingbird Marketing, another SEO vendor, has a great podcast. I'm blanking on the name of the podcast at the moment, but he and Guy Sakalakis has a marketing podcast. I'll come back to it. It'll pop into my head. Lunch Hour Legal. Thank you. Lunch Hour Legal. And then we also had company Razor Rank that we've done business with in the past was there speaking. Drive AI was there speaking. All of them spoke on a similar theme that I kept going back to over and over and over again, which is how do you hold your vendor accountable to their results? You know, because one of the problems is they will feed you all kind of statistics. You know, here's your page rank, here's your open rate, here's your number of views, here's your impressions. Does any of that matter? Because in my mind, the only thing that matters is how many clients did you sign up. You know, they could send you a ton of leads, but if the leads are all crap, what good did that do you? It just wastes your time. So over and over again, they talked about that general theme. So the fun thing, so all of these people are there trying to pitch you. You know, hey, come dump Hennessey, come to our agency. And so I'll go talk to them. And I'll take good notes. And I'm like, what are you pitching? Like, what is your hook? What is your idea? And so my idea behind it, because I'm very happy with Jason Hennessey's firm. I don't plan on changing anytime soon. But I take all these other ideas that I get from these other firms and all these things that they're pitching, and I just make a big list. And I'm creating a list of 10 or 12 things. And we have a meeting with Hennessey, our regular bi-weekly meeting. Bi-monthly meeting tomorrow, and I'm going to go through that list with them. Hey, Mockingbird says they can do this. How are we doing that? You know, Blue Shark says they can do this, and so forth and so forth. I'm going to literally go through the list of all of these other things that people are pitching, and hold his feet to the fire, because I mean they are his competitors. I mean, I could easily, we're on a month-to-month contract. We could easily move anytime. I don't want to, but I simply want to make sure that I'm getting value for my money. Even the best vendors can sometimes, wander astray. So I just want to make sure that we're staying current. For example, I think RazorRank was pitching a concept of what's called full circle attribution with your PPC campaign, about how you take data, results-driven data. In other words, did you sign up the lead or did you not sign up the lead? Did you reject the lead? And you feed that data back into Google, and Google is supposed to get smarter, and it's supposed to improve your PPC results. Like, well, that's great. Hey, Hennessey, are you doing something similar to that? Show me what you're doing. This is what RazorRank said that they're doing. Mockingbird had a program, and one of their pitches is that most people's websites are big and bloated and full of poor content that was probably propagated back in the day when content was king and you just kept throwing crap against the wall. And they have this program where they go through and they consolidate your content into more modern, usable things that supposedly drives your rankings. Like, so great. That's a great idea. Hey, Hennessey, how are you doing this for me? What was the other idea we had? I want to say it was Drive that had a program where they did opposition research, and they would go and do opposition research and determine. You're shaking your head like I got the vendor wrong, and I might have. Who was the vendor then?
I think it was Tanner Jones.
No, it wasn't Tanner. Anyway, they were the one in the booth right next to Hennessey. But point is, there was one pitch was, we will do opposition research on your chief competitors, and we will figure out what they're doing that you are not doing and where are the gaps. Firm Pilot. Yes, it was Firm Pilot that pitched that one. So I'm like, fine, I'm going to take that concept back to Hennessey. Hey, this is what they're pitching. What are you doing to do the same thing for me? So that was the central theme that kept coming back and forth. And I made sure to go to all the vendor booths and talk to them one-on-one. Of course, I listened to them intently from this, when they were talking from the stage about what they're pitching. But that was a lot of what struck me over the 3.5 days that we're there, is that there's all of these. It's great when you get all the vendors in the same room and they're competing against each other and trying to throw their best stuff out there. And then you can really pick it apart and figure out what you want to do. And they all charge for all these services. So you can either choose to hire them to do these things for you, or maybe you could just listen to the ideal and figure out how to reverse engineer it and do it yourself cheaper.
Yeah, I think that's one of the takeaways from one of this that you've instilled in me since I've been here from a PILMMA or an AAJ is walk the exhibit halls. So you get very upset if I don't walk the exhibit halls. And it's not necessarily because you're asking me to look for a new vendor or a new supplier for a need. It's so that we can go back and, to use your words, reverse engineer what they're doing with our existing tech stack. So
if you feign and play interest, they'll take you out to nice restaurants. And we managed to do that. So
because Marc will not take us out. That
is a rule. We don't pay for anything when we go to these things. If a vendor's not buying you dinner, you're not doing it right.
So I think that was very interesting to be able to hear your take on that. So is it my turn, Marc?
I think it is your turn. What's your next one?
So the one that I just wanted to mention that I thought might be of interest to our listeners is the discussion on attorney compensation by David Vicknair, I believe. So I just thought it was really interesting. Again, it had a lot of spreadsheets. So again, my love language. But the takeaway the thing I wrote down was that total attorney comp should be at 20% or below of your revenue. And I don't think we've ever done that particular analysis.
Well, the problem is we don't track it because we have a PEO, paychecks, that we use to do our payroll, and it does not break out our comp between attorneys and non-attorneys. I suppose it could if we asked them.
It absolutely does, Marc.
Well, you never told me this.
I don't know why. I do revenue to labor for you. How do you think I do revenue to
I don't know. I just feel it's a bunch of magic fairies and a little thing that do it.
So, and the other thing that, this is
why I do the podcast, because I learn stuff.
He did a great job of breaking down. There are 4 potential comp models out there for your attorneys. The straight percentage of the fee revenue. The second one is salary plus percentage of the fee revenue,
which is what we do.
Yep. And the third option is salary plus a discretionary bonus of some kind. And then the fourth is the compensation profit model, which is what I believe he was talking about. Mm-hmm. And so, of course, he went into how it works, what he puts in for overhead and just all the different line items, and again, a lot of spreadsheets. But what the main important thing that I took from that was that, the attorneys were not happy when he switched to this model. And I'll talk about this more in our closing remarks, but it really is so liberating to hear other attorneys and other law firms talk about how unhappy their attorneys are when they move their cheese.
Make them suffer, dude. Make them suffer.
Well, and I think that you and I almost get into this whole paralysis of, well, what are the attorneys going to think and how much pushback are we going to get? And we get almost reticent to make change because I don't think it's not that we don't want to upset them. We know we're going to upset them, but that's going to be a lot of pushback, and it just almost stymies us sometimes. And so it was almost liberating to hear another attorney say, they were mad. And I just kept saying over and over again, yep, but this is the way it's going to be, or whatever his phrase was. I think I wrote it down in my notes, but he just kept saying, yep, and this is the way it's going to be. Why do I have overhead percentage? Why is the overhead percentage 30%? That's how much it takes to build this firm, or whatever his phrase was. It just really was liberating to hear that. And so the reason why he switched to this compensation profit model was that he said that it gave his attorneys an ownership mindset. Do you remember that?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I understand totally why he would do it.
So just because I think you would do a better job of this, Marc, what is that compensation profit model that he was talking about? Okay.
So basically you start with, so this basically works when you're talking about a team leader. So in other words, you have the main attorney that runs a team. So he may have an associate attorney under him or her, and a staff, a couple of paralegals, a medical records clerk. So basically this team is responsible for cases soup to nuts. And so they have their total revenue that this particular team produces. And then from that total revenue, the firm subtracts a marketing cost because it costs so much to market to get these cases, and that leaves a number, whatever that number is, and from there they subtract overhead costs, some percentage, and then that leaves a number. And then from there you subtract, what I would call unrecovered case costs, cases that went south, cases that got a 0 and you had to eat the case costs, or case costs that, maybe on a case you did recover, but you still couldn't get all your expenses back, whatever that is. And then that came down to a net profit for the unit. And then that lead attorney was paid a percentage of the net profit. Now, that lead attorney was also paid a salary, but that salary came out of the overhead percentage. So the point is, it made the attorney in charge think like a business. What should I be paying my paralegals? How many paralegals do I really need in this business unit? What do I pay if I have an associate attorney that's working under me? What do I pay that person? It makes them have ownership in their team. Should I spend $20,000 developing this iffy case that may not fly? Because if the case doesn't fly and we shut the case down, the firm doesn't pay the $20,000. My business unit, it comes out of my profit. I eat at least a percentage of the $20,000 in expenses that went nowhere. So it makes that team lead, that lead attorney, responsible for, from a business standpoint, from a profit and loss standpoint, all of their decisions. Makes them have buy-in. Now, there's lots of good reasons to do that. I can think of reasons that it won't work as well, which is why I'm not going to do it in my firm, because we have a different structure for a lot of reasons. But it works well. I think it works extremely well in a personal injury firm, a high-volume personal injury firm. Because in a high-volume personal injury firm, the attorney that's handling the cases are generally not responsible for originating the case, bringing in business. It's the 800-pound gorilla that has the $10 million a year marketing budget that's just bringing in the cases. And so the attorney in charge, their job is not to generate business. Their job is simply to take the business that the firm gives them and to convert it into cash. Okay. That's a different model than, say, the number one, the first model you gave me, which is just a pure fee split.
Yep. A percentage of the
revenue. A percentage of the revenue. In that case, a lot of times the attorney is expected to go out and generate their own work. The third model you gave, which is a salary and a discretionary bonus, which I think is an absolute abomination that nobody should use, is that discretionary bonuses simply don't work. They are a waste of time.
At some point, yes, you must grow out of that.
You got to, we did okay this year, so I'm going to give everybody a $10,000 bonus. That's simply a waste of time. It's not tied to any KPIs. It's not tied to performance. It's tied to the whim of the owner. I just think those are a waste of time. What we do, which is salary plus a percentage of revenue generated, I like, because our attorneys, in addition to having revenue production responsibilities, in other words, doing the work, they all have managerial responsibilities as well, which take away their time from their ability to simply produce revenue. So they have multiple responsibilities, and therefore I don't like the pure profit model in our world, because a lot of the profit that we generate comes from non-attorney work. And it comes from processes and procedures and systems and automation, and that requires a lot of management. So I need my attorneys to spend a lot of their time doing managerial work, which I think is different from, say, a pure PI law firm that just pumps cases in all the time. So I think there's good and bad. I like hearing what the guy said. What was the guy's name again?
David Vicknair.
David Vicknair. Okay. I really liked what he had to say, and it's good to know these different models. I'm still comfortable in my model. Because
we are an administrative law practice. I completely understand it. This doesn't work for us. So one of the things that he did that you touched on was that David mentioned that attorneys tend to ask for resources rather than learning how to be cost effective and efficient.
Oh, yeah.
And since they always want
more.
They
don't care about it costs. They just want more.
That is a push and a pull we've mentioned on this podcast before. Every time somebody asks for another person, I'm like, no, learn how to be efficient with what we've given you. And so I thought that was insightful that other people deal with the same things. And also other pros to the compensation model that we've also discussed. It's very simple. There's no such a subjectivity. And as your firm grows, if you are a personal injury, it just offers you flexibility to really kind of grow. So I really like that for many reasons.
My turn?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so my next one, gentleman by the name of Jeff Hampton.
Oh, I liked him.
And he talked about YouTube strategies. So YouTube as its own marketing channel. And I will admit, in the teens, we put up a lot of YouTube videos, but, you know, and it was good. It didn't have overwhelming success, but I'm not sure that we executed it all that well. But he talked about his strategy, and he had a 5-step platform. And by the way, he has a company that he has started, a side gig. This is what happens. All of these lawyers, they find some shiny object and they convert it into a side gig company. But he helps.
Or a podcast.
Yes, I think it's YouTubeRainmakers.com is his website. And we are going to vet him, and we are going to talk to him about doing business with him. And, you know, we might do business with him, or we might figure out what he's doing and just reverse engineer it ourselves. I haven't decided yet.
I hope he doesn't listen to this podcast.
Yeah,
Mark.
well, he knows this already. If you don't know this, if you're a vendor and don't realize this is what's going on, you're kind of naive. So
I really liked him, but what were your 3 takeaways, or what were some of your takeaways from Jeff's presentation?
I love what he said. Steal like an artist. Don't talk like a lawyer. And the hook is all important. And the more I think about it, the more, you know, I think he's right. And this is probably where we missed the boat when back in the teens when we were doing a lot of YouTube, is you've got their attention for 3 seconds. And so your initial thumbnail, you know, in other words, how the video presents, your initial title, you know, what's the catchy little title, the first 3 words or 5 words or 10 words out of your mouth has to hook them. It has to interest them so they will actually pay attention and watch the rest of what you have to say. I was just doing this yesterday. I was sitting on the couch. I was looking up golf videos. This is what my little obsession is because I get pissed off at my golf game and I start going, there's a bunch of YouTube channels on how to play better golf, and they give you little tips, and, you know, and I'll hit the start of 3 or 4 videos and see how it starts. I'll look at the first 10 or 20 seconds and like, that's boring. That's boring. All right, this one hooked me. So that was the first thing. And then the second part was trying to actually make videos. Instead of making videos about what you want to talk about, you need to make videos about what people want to hear about. And I think that was sort of a shift in the mindset. You know, what do people care about? You know, YouTube is the second largest search engine. I do it all the time. I can't figure out how to change the battery on my electric door locks at my house. I YouTube the son of a bitch. You know, somebody's made a video on it. The other day, I could not figure out how to find the battery cables on my Mustang. And I had to Google 2015 Mustang, you know, where the hell's the battery cables at? I'm constantly using YouTube as a how-to do stupid little things. You know, what was the other thing I couldn't figure out? Oh, I couldn't figure out how to work a new gas grill that I had bought, you know, and I'm like, I couldn't read the instructions. The instructions were also, I found a video. I typed in the model number and I said, where's the video? But combining the hook with the SEO that he's suggesting doing, and thinking of it from the perspective of what do my viewers want to hear, not what I want to say. Just sort of got me all jazzed up again, and like thinking, I want to refire up our video production. You know?
I've been talking about that since about a year ago when I came back from PILMMA Mastermind.
Yes.
I'm talking to you about like just using videos more in our marketing strategy.
I've never disagreed with that. It's just a matter of sometimes it's
totally disagreed
I have
with
never disagreed with anything you've ever said.
Every
That's a
single time.
damn
But-
lie I'm disagreeing with now, what you just said, because I've never disagreed with you.
But okay, Exhibit A. But also, I think that I'm now combining some of the presentations that we heard, but one of them suggested that we use, you know how in your Google searches, the people also asked those questions?
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, if you need content, go Google the question and then just take all the people also asked questions and make a video on it,
Right.
which I thought was obvious and yet brilliant at the same time.
Obvious and yet brilliant. So that was one thing that I looked at that really got me sort of jazzed up. And what I think I'm going to be spending a little bit of time with over the next, month or so, like brainstorming, like what are some good ideas? What do people care about? Which is kind of what we just said. I was kind of like, we're kind of coming to the break before our conclusion, and I still feel guilty that we're not talking about Mickey Love and Cassie Lewis, who I thought were by far the best presenters.
They're always my favorites.
They're always the best.
Well, I was going to talk about Cassidy in my closing remarks.
Okay. All right. So we can't short shrift them, but it was like, it's so in depth, and especially Mickey with her spreadsheets, which that's your love language.
Mm-hmm.
Mickey actually spoke twice.
Yep, she moderated an intake panel.
Oh, that's right. She spoke 3 times, because if you include the moderated panel.
KPIs, and I think she also did an intake presentation.
So she's really great, and you can catch her at accelerator.com. Is that the correct site?
Mark, I think it's almost Accelerator Conference or something.
Accelerator
like that.
Conference or something along those lines.
She's also the fractional COO for PILMMA.
Yes, she is.
So we can talk more about that maybe after the break and the resources you get as a PILMMA.
All right. Well, with that, we're going to come back and talk about PILMMA resources right when we get back. I'm Marc Whitehead, a lawyer, entrepreneur, and business coach. Thanks so much for tuning into the Successful Barrister Podcast. We have a blast creating it, and I hope you find it helpful. If our chats have sparked your interest, I'd love to hear from you. Shoot me an email at marc@marcwhitehead.com. That's Marc spelled with a C. And join the Successful Barrister newsletter. Even better, let's hop on a call. I'd love to chat about how we can collaborate, share ideas, or just catch up. All right, Diana. So in our conclusion, give us your sort of concluding thoughts about the PILMMA Super Summit.
Well, I did want to mention 2 presentations. Cassie Lewis, I took so many op notes about okay, change this meeting structure, get these reports in front of Marc here. And she wasn't even talking about ops. It was just interesting to me how I think it is back to your, hey, Diana, did you know? Because when you're just sitting there listening to really great people at the top of their game talk about what they're very passionate about and what they're really good at, it creates ideas and the opportunity for ideas to come to mind. And it's just a great big brainstorm session for me, at least. It's similar to when I go to Atticus and, we're sitting there listening and I'm just taking pages and pages of notes on my little brainstormer worksheet. And you're like, every single time you're like, what are you writing over there? And a lot of the times it has nothing to do with the content that's actually being presented. It's just that they said something and my brain automatically took it to 3 different things that we could implement in our own firm.
Yes.
So 2 things that Cassidy mentioned that I loved and am going to do at our firm. The top 60 cases report over 3 years. She went back and looked at the top 20 cases from each year over 3 years. So obviously top 60 cases to figure out, what was the client, what did the client look like? What were demographics for the client? But also where did we get that client from? What was the source, the marketing campaign? And I thought that was just brilliant. And then, of course, the close with no fee report by campaign. And of course, then I put by intake specialist, which, it just shows we've done close with no fee reports. I mean, that was a fee report you had before.
So closed cases where we basically got nothing out of the deal.
Correct.
That either we lost or we never should have took to begin with.
Yep. And you've had that report, or at least a summary of that report in some form or fashion before I even got here. And I added intake specialist to it a long time ago to see if we could draw some trends. And then I don't know why, but it took hearing Cassidy to talk about, add our, what we call the source in our Litify, but what was the marketing channel that we got this client from? And we already, we had a dashboard of some sort the 2 days after we got back from PILMMA, and I was very easily able to modify that Litify report and get you data that you were kind of pushing a team about. And I was like, oh, well, it's from this vendor. And you said, I would have guessed that.
Right.
And
so the ideal is if, certain vendors, you can tell right off the top, the leads that they give you are crappy, and you can tell at the very beginning that they're not very good. But then there's also that second level after you process the case, what percentage of, if you can spot a trend, like most of my losses are coming from this particular vendor, then you can see that there's something wrong with that vendor. Maybe you shouldn't be investing as much money as you are with that particular vendor, that particular marketing channel.
It's not working.
Yeah, it's
Either
not working.
They're missing the mark, or we need to tweak their criteria or something, but it's just not working. And
right.
So the other, in my closing thoughts, is it Justin Lovely? He's always talked about AI. He did it 2 PILMMA some summits ago that I attended, and he's just really renowned, I mean, in the PILMMA world for his AI knowledge, and he's always pushing the limits and bringing new AI tools to PILMMA members. But he talked about and began his presentation not with AI, but what he called this kind of change curve. And it was almost, I don't even know what that shape is. Is it a cosine or is it a sine?
Good.
Anyway.
You're now, Jesus, you're talking high school trigonometry.
But he talked about how, when you introduce this new thing to your team members, they go from almost like depression to resignation to acceptance. And again, it's this, there was a lot of talk about mindset at this Super Summit, where I just thought that was really important for me to hear that it's okay. They're going to be really upset when you introduce this new thing, and then they're going to eventually get resigned to it, and then they will accept it. Where we are in our firm in this, can I call it a valley of death? I don't want to call it a valley of death, but
I would just say bottom of the J curve.
Where we are in the bottom of our J curve, there is so much almost pushback too. And every time I come back, we're like, we came back from Atticus and we heard about this really cool thing. I mean, I don't even need to look at them to know they're rolling their eyes at us. And so it can be a bit of a drudgery, but to be in a room of other people and just kind of get that energy to be like, it's okay. It was important for me to hear. Also, just as a very tactile thing, he said you need to develop an AI policy for your firm, and that is absolutely something we should do.
Yeah, absolutely. So that you mentioned Cassie Lewis, I will throw out this plug for her. She had, she's started a side gig as a fractional CMO, fractional Chief Marketing Officer, and she's putting out a product, a training course for other marketing directors, marketing staff, marketing assistants that you may have in your law firm. $997. I haven't looked at it, hadn't vetted it, but if it came from Cassidy, I'm pretty sure it's got to be pretty good. Mm-hmm. So it is a product out there that might be of interest to you. Can we put this fun stuff in our show notes? Okay, so we'll put we talk about a lot of things that we're not giving you great references to. Check out the show notes. We'll give you the links to their websites. And again, we talked a lot about Mickey Love. Again, we'll put the accelerator contact information in our show notes. But she has, and I'm sure she'll send it to you, she has a list of the top KPIs that lawyers should be tracking, or the spreadsheets that you should be looking at. And she typically, it's kind of her bait piece. She will send it around for free if you contact her. So we'll put that in the show notes as well. I think the takeaway that I would share with people is, again, the mastermind concept. Mm-hmm. So now, granted, they're pushing the masterminds because they charge for that, and this is where Ken makes most of his money. I get this. But I'm not opposed to somebody making money if they're providing value in return. And they have various mastermind levels at PILMMA, depending on your firm size. They usually do it in terms of revenue, but somewhere in that neighborhood. But the concept of getting together with like-minded people and sharing ideas, sharing best practices, inspiring each other. The PILMMA Super Summit is a way to do it, relatively inexpensively because it's just a one-shot deal. Obviously, the mastermind, which meets, I guess, 3 to 4 times a year.
4 times. Well, 3, and
including
then
the
plus
Super
Summit.
At very nice places like Cabo San Lucas and
Montreal this year.
Montreal
and Hawaii this
and
year.
Hawaii. So they go to really cool places to get together with like-minded people. So basically, that's a concept that they push a lot. And I understand why they're pushing it, but I also understand there's a lot of value in it. We've done the mastermind before.
We did it last year, and I thought it was just fantastic. Obviously, we were conflicted out from our schedules this year from participating again, but I still reference. So, for example, when we brought on our HR coordinator, I was like, I want this. When I told him we were working on our job descriptions, I said, I know what HR people call a job description. I want this, and I brought up the thing that Jonathan from Smash brought to last year's mastermind, because you share your best stuff, right? Like, oh, I did this last quarter, and I loved it. I still keep it on my desk as something to emulate.
So with that, I want to thank everybody for listening to the Successful Barrister Podcast, where legal legends are made. I'm Marc.
And I'm Diana.
And together we're the dynamic duo of law. So remember to rate and review us wherever you get your podcasts. And if you've enjoyed this, tell your friends. And be sure to visit us at successfulbarrister.com. And be sure to visit our sponsor, Marc Whitehead Associates, a national disability law firm, at disabilitydenials.com. And with that, we're out of here.
Bye.